Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In this video you're going to learn the best framework we are using in order to convert cold prospects on the call into highly paid clients.
Oh my god! Wow!
So let's dive in. First of all, how did we figure this out? How did we figure this framework out? We actually tested out a lot of different frameworks. And because we tested a lot and because we have a lot of calls, we have a lot of data, and with that data we could eventually determine which framework is actually the best in order to close cold prospects on the phone. We have a certain framework in order to close these people, and that's exactly what you are going to learn today.
Nice.
I've learned this framework from my multi-8-figure mentor. So even if you don't believe me, please believe my mentor because he literally closed multiple 8 figures with this exact framework as well. And because we are testing certain things, we tested his framework, we tested certain other frameworks out, and this framework that I'm going to show you today is really the best that we saw. So let's dive in. So first of all, how does it look like? So what do we actually do on the call? First of all, we are going to make sure that there's an introduction phase, there's a belief hitting phase, a transition phase, a pillar pitch phase, committing phase, and objection handling phase. So we need to make sure that these phases are always in the call. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phases that we always need to do in order to properly convert a prospect. So let me dive in and let me explain each of these phases first. So first of all, we have the introduction, and this is just a quick 30 seconds to 1 minute conversation where you just build a little bit of rapport and where you set the agenda. With setting the agenda, it means that you're setting a frame so that the other person knows that you're going to ask them questions in order to figure out, first of all, if you can actually help the person and if their current situation and future situation matches with what you can offer, and also to hit certain beliefs in order to convert them at the end of the call. So when we set the proper frame so that they know like, hey, we are going to ask a few questions to see if we're a match, then we go to the belief hitting phase. In the belief hitting phase, this is actually a phase where we're going to ask all of these questions to first of all ensure that you can actually really help them out and that they're actually a fit for what you have to offer. And second, to eventually hit certain beliefs in order for them to believe the right things in order to convert at the end of the call.
Hi.
Okay.
First of all, we have background questions. Certain people do it in a 2-call close. Certain people close in the 1-call close. If you do a 2-call close, I would advise to only ask the background questions. And why is this? It's because the pain questions, doubt questions, solution questions, cost questions might trigger certain emotions, and you always want to have the emotions at the closing call. And so if you're going to have a 2-call close and you're going to ask all of these questions in the first call, and then you stop and then you have the second call with the explanation of your product, then you have all of these emotions, but they're not in the call where they're getting closed. And so then it's a little bit harder to close them in the end. And so if you have a 1-call process, then you can just run this whole script and then you can just do exactly what is explained here. If you have a 2-call process, then you can better just ask these questions in the first call, just to first of all make sure that you can actually really help the person, because that's where these background questions are for as well. And if you can actually help them, then let them go to the second call where you can eventually ask a little bit more about their situation to ensure that you can help them, and then eventually that you can close them if they are a good fit. But what are belief hitting questions eventually? You have the pain questions, doubt questions, financial questions, solution questions, goals questions, desire, and support. So these are certain beliefs that you need to hit in order to make sure that you can convert the prospect, because the prospect needs to first of all believe that there's a pain, that there's a doubt. So you need to ensure that the person thinks and knows, if that's the case, that they can't do it themselves. You need to ensure that they have the willingness and resources to invest. So they need to understand that this option that you're explaining them eventually is something that's worth a lot of money, and just to check in if they actually have the resources and willingness to invest. So you need to create that willingness to invest sometimes as well. They have the solution questions. This is to ensure that you know what kind of solutions were offered to them in the past, so you can know what they've already tried and if they already tried something similar or not. Then we have the cost questions to make sure that they know that right now is the time to eventually work together with you or another party to really solve the problem, and that they know the cost of not taking action. Because if the cost of not taking action is high, then they're losing money every single day that they're not working together with you, for example. And so if they know that there is a cost of not taking action, they're more willing to eventually take action at the end of the call. Then we have the desire. The desire belief is actually what happens if they fix the problem. So this is like the dream situation. And this is also to just make sure that you know where they want to go to see if it matches with what you can offer, but also to eventually get some emotions up as well and see where they just want to go. And then the last one is actually the support questions, to just see like, hey, is there someone that might be involved in this decision? Because then eventually you want to have a 2-call close for sure, because then you can also explain the product and explain everything to the person that also decides on this. And those were the belief hitting questions actually. So it's always really important to ensure that every single belief is hit before you close them. Because it might really be possible that, for example, if you don't hit this question or you don't ask this question, then at the end of the call they're going to say, hey, I still need to discuss with my partner, so yeah, I'll let you know in a few weeks or something like that. But if you actually ask this, so like, hey, is there anyone else involved in this decision? Then you already know that there's a partner involved and you can do a 2-call close instead of a 1-call close, because they can get the partner on the call and they can let them make a decision at the end of the call. The same goes with the cost questions. Like if they don't understand why it's important to act now, then they might want to do it in 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. And so by hitting these questions and by hitting these beliefs, you will eventually have less objections to handle at the end of the call. And that's why it's extremely important to ask all of these questions in order to make sure they have the right beliefs in order to buy. Then when you hit all the beliefs, then we are going to transition to the pitch. So now we have the transition. And what we do in the transition is just transition from the questions to you pitching, but also while lowering your sales resistance. So instead of telling them like, hey, let me explain what we do, you sort of ask them what they want to do next. And if they say, hey, let me know about your process, then that's all fine. They sort of gave them control about the situation, and then in 9 out of 10 times they will always say the pillar pitch, and otherwise you can still go over the pillar pitch. So this is sort of to just lower the sales resistance so that they feel that they have control of the conversation, and then eventually you can pitch them your pillars. So then when we did the transition, then we are going to the pillar pitch. And how this goes, this is actually a hard promise. So this is sort of like the end result in one sentence, 1 or 2 sentences. So this means this can be, hey, I'm going to explain how you can get 30 to 60 sales calls with the outbound ecosystems within 3 months of activating the system. This is how you're going to go from 10k a month to 100k a month in 3 months. That's also like a hard promise. And so that's what you're going to frame first. So you're first going to state the big promise so that you have their intention, and they are actually going through your process from A, B, C, D, E in order to really explain it so they clearly understand the bridge they're going to walk on. So for example, they are at point A and you need to take them to point B, but there's like a ditch in between, and there you need to clearly paint the bridge in order for them to go from A to B without falling in the ditch. And that's what you're actually doing in the pillars. So they need to clearly understand the process that they're going through in order to get the final result. Because especially with cold clients, with cold prospects, they just need to clearly understand what you have to offer and how it can eventually help them. Because if they are cold, they don't really know exactly what you do. And so then the pillars and the explanation of the pillars become more and more and more important, because they just want to know what you exactly do and how you can help them. So then you explain that, and then eventually you're going to delivery, like how is this all fulfilled? So you have your hard promise, then the bridge, so like the 3 to 5 pillars, 3 to 5 steps they're going to take together with you in order to get the results, and they explain how these pillars are fulfilled. And then we have the committing phase. So then the pillar pitch is done. So then we have the committing phase. And the first thing we're going to do in the committing phase is actually a temp check. Then we have the next steps, and then we have the investment drop. We first always do a temp check before we drop the investment to understand how bought in they are the process. So then we do, for example, like, hey, from 1 to 10, 1 means like, Roy, I hate you, I want to get off this call. And 10 means like, hey, this process specifically is like exactly what I need in order to go to a certain result. And they do the temp check. Everything under 8 means that they're not fully bought in, and they need to make sure to understand why they're not a 9, for example. So they ask like, hey, why are you not a 9? Like, what is like keeping you from being a 9? And then they're already giving you the objections, so you don't need to handle them after the investment drop, or you understand already where uncertainty is, so you can solve that before dropping the price. And so that's what we do with the temp check. Then you quickly explain the next steps, and you quickly explain the next steps, what happens after they process the investment. And we just clearly explain this, because then they just know like, hey, if I give them the money, this is what happens next. And this is just for clarity, so that they're not like, all of a sudden they're giving the money and they have no clarity on what happens next, just for some clarity. And then eventually we drop the price while attaching it to the person's goals. If you calculated that an extra 20k is possible for that person, and so for example they are at 10k right now and you can bring them to 30k a month, then you say, hey, the price to eventually get you from 10k to 30k a month in 3 months is only, let's say, 10k. And they are silent. And that's how you do it. So they just literally attach it to the goals that you actually already figured out together. This can't be like a strange goal that you didn't like calculate. It needs to be realistic. Because if someone says, yeah, I want to have a million in 3 months, a million a month in 3 months, and I'm at 10k right now, that's not really realistic in most cases. And so if you attach it to like a million in 3 months, then you're setting strange expectations that are not true. And then eventually you have like bad clients, not happy clients. So you don't want that. So make sure to actually give them the goals that are actually attainable for them, and based on calculations to ensure that they also understand that this is like achievable. And then we are done with the committing phase. After the committing phase, we are going to handle the objections. First of all, we need to make sure to handle the doubt and uncertainty objections. Afterwards, the spouse and partner. Why do we do this? It's because like we can handle the spouse and partner objections first, but if they have doubt about the process or are uncertain, they're never going to speak about their partner about this, or they're never going to get a loan, or they're going to like really checking their finances if they can pay it. So it's always important to tie down on the process first, to really make sure that they're like fully bought in on the process, so that they fully understand that this process is what gets them to the certain result. And only if you're 100% sure they believe that and they know that that is true, they can handle the spouse and partner. Because otherwise handling these won't really make sense, because they're never going to talk to their partner, or they're going to check their finances if they're actually uncertain about the process. And that's actually it. So those are the steps we take, and that's the framework we use in order to close cold prospects on the call. And this is really crucial, because if you don't do this properly, you won't really convert at a high level. And this is just, we really tested multiple frameworks. This is really the best one we've used so far and the best converting one. So I'd highly advise to use the same sort of framework. And that's it for the video again. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in another video.